AITA for refusing to split the bill for my mom's birthday dinner because my sister ordered a very expensive meal. Last week was my mom's birthday, and my older sister decided to plan a family dinner to celebrate. For context, my mom is in her mid-50s and has always been the heart of our family. She's kind, nurturing, and the type of person who lights up any room she walks into. My sister, who's 28, has always been the planner of the family. She's the one who organizes birthdays, holidays, and get-togethers. She has a great job in marketing, makes good money, and generally enjoys taking the reins when it comes to family events. I'm 22, still in college, and working part-time to make ends meet. I'm in no way struggling, but my budget is tight, and I have to be mindful of every dollar I spend. When my sister told me about the dinner, I was genuinely excited. It's been a while since we had a proper family night out, and I thought it was a lovely idea. She made a reservation at this semi-fancy Italian restaurant downtown. It's the type of place where the lighting is dim, the breadbasket is endless, and the waiters are so polished they could pass for movie extras. I had never been there before, but I knew it wasn't exactly a cheap eats kind of place. That said, I figured I could make it work if I stuck to something simple on the menu. The plan seemed pretty straightforward. My sister would organize everything, we'd all meet at the restaurant, and we'd have a nice time celebrating Mom. I assumed we'd either split the check based on what we ordered or that maybe my sister, given her financial situation and the fact that she planned the whole thing, would cover most of Mom's meal. After all, my sister has always been the big spender in the family. She loves going out, buying fancy things, and generally treating people. I, on the other hand, don't have that kind of flexibility, so I usually keep things simple. The day of the dinner arrived, and I made sure to get there on time. Mom looked radiant, dressed in a pretty blue dress that my sister had apparently picked out for her earlier that week. My sister was there with her boyfriend, who I'll admit I'm not super close to, but he's generally nice enough. The restaurant was beautiful, candles on every table, soft music playing in the background, and the kind of menu that doesn't list prices, which immediately made me nervous. Still, I was determined to enjoy the night. It was Mom's birthday, after all. When the waiter handed out the menus, I scanned it carefully, looking for the most affordable option. I ended up choosing a simple pasta dish and stuck with water to drink. My pasta was about $20, which was still a bit more than I would typically spend on a meal, but it felt reasonable given the occasion. Meanwhile, my sister and her boyfriend seemed to be in full treat-yourself mode. They ordered appetizers for the table, cocktails, steaks, and eventually even dessert. Mom didn't hold back either, which I was happy about. It's her day, and she deserved to enjoy it. The dinner itself was wonderful, for the most part. We laughed, reminisced about old family stories, and it was nice to see Mom so happy. I stayed quiet about my financial situation because I didn't want to dampen the mood. As much as I was silently doing the mental math in my head, I kept reminding myself that I could handle my small order and maybe chip in a bit for Mom's meal as a nice gesture. Then the check came. My sister picked it up and glanced at it like she was doing quick mental math. She placed it back on the table, smiled, and said, "Okay, let's just split it evenly. Should be about $80 each." I froze. $80? That was more than I'd budgeted for food for the entire week. I stared at the table for a moment, wondering if I'd heard her correctly. I quickly glanced at my sister and her boyfriend, who were casually sipping the last of their drinks like this was no big deal. I swallowed hard and said, as politely as I could, "Oh, I actually just ordered the pasta, so I'll pay for mine and chip in a little for Mom's meal." My sister's face changed instantly. She gave me that look, half disbelief, half annoyance, that I've seen 100 times before. It's the look she gives when she thinks I'm being difficult but doesn't want to say it outright in front of other people. She let out a small sigh and said, "It's not a big deal, we're family. Just split it evenly, it's fair." I could feel my stomach tighten. I knew she thought I was being cheap, but $80 was simply not an option for me. I tried to explain as calmly as possible, "I'm sorry, I really can't afford $80 right now. I'll pay for my meal and put in 15 toward Mom's." My sister's expression shifted again, this time to something more dramatic. She sighed loudly and rolled her eyes like I was a child refusing to share my toys. "It's not that much money," she said, her tone sharper now. You're making this a bigger deal than it needs to be. At this point, the table felt suffocatingly awkward. My mom tried to step in and smooth things over. It's okay, she said gently, I don't care how we split it. Let's just enjoy the night. But her tone told me she was uncomfortable with the tension. My sister's boyfriend, who up until that moment had been pretty quiet, decided to chime in. Yeah, it's not a lot, he said, backing my sister. It's just how these things go when you go out as a group. I could feel my face heating up. I wanted to disappear into my chair. But at the same time, I knew I had to stand my ground. Spending money I didn't have wasn't an option, no matter how normal they thought it was to split the bill evenly. I took a deep breath and said, I'm sorry, but I just can't do that. I'll pay my share and what I can toward Mom's, but that's all I can afford. The atmosphere was ice cold after that. My sister paid the rest of the bill but did so with dramatic gestures that made it clear she was annoyed. She barely spoke to me for the rest of the night. When we said goodbye, she gave me a short, clipped hug and walked off with her boyfriend. Later that night, she texted me. It was a long message about how I embarrassed her, made things awkward for everyone, and was ungrateful for not being willing to split the bill evenly on Mom's birthday. She ended it by saying I was selfish and that she didn't understand why I couldn't just go along with it for one night. I feel awful because I didn't want to cause drama, especially on Mom's special day. But I also feel like I did the only thing I could under the circumstances. I can't help but wonder, was I really in the wrong here? Should I have just sucked it up and found a way to pay the $80, even if it meant stretching myself thin? Or was it reasonable to expect to pay for only what I ordered and a little extra for Mom? Am I the bad guy? Update 1. Wow, I did not expect this post to blow up the way it did. First of all, thank you for all the comments and advice. I've read as many as I could, and your support, and even the constructive criticism, means a lot. Honestly, I didn't expect so many people to relate to my situation or have such strong opinions about it. Some of the comments made me laugh, others made me think, and a few stung, but I'm grateful for the different perspectives. Since there's been so much interest in what happened, I wanted to give you all an update on what's gone down since the infamous dinner. After posting, I sat with my feelings for a bit. I was still upset, but I didn't want this to fester and turn into a bigger issue than it already was. So, I decided to reach out to my sister to try and clear the air. I wasn't expecting a miracle, but I figured it was worth a shot. I sent her a message apologizing again if the situation at dinner had made her feel uncomfortable or embarrassed. I told her I hadn't meant to cause any drama, and I reiterated, for what felt like the millionth time, that I couldn't afford to split the bill evenly. I explained that I'd done what I thought was fair by paying for my meal and contributing toward Mom's, and that I genuinely thought it would be enough to show that I cared. Her response was, not what I'd hoped for. She hit me with, if you can't afford to go out, you shouldn't have come. Ouch. That stung more than I expected it to. I sat there for a minute, rereading her message, trying to make sense of the fact that she genuinely seemed to believe I had no place at the table that night just because I couldn't match her spending. It felt so dismissive, like I wasn't part of the family anymore unless I could keep up financially. I replied, reminding her that she had invited me to the dinner in the first place and never mentioned anything about splitting the bill evenly. I told her that if I'd known this was her expectation, would have either declined the invite or made it clear beforehand that I could only pay for my own meal. Her response. It's common sense to just split the bill at a family dinner. You're an adult, you should have known. And that's when my patience officially ran out. I was so fed up at this point. I told her that expecting me, a college student with a part-time job, to subsidize her extravagant meal was unfair and completely unreasonable. I reminded her that I'd made an effort to contribute what I could toward Mom's meal because I wanted to celebrate her, even if I couldn't afford to go all out like she had. I said it wasn't about being cheap or selfish, it was about doing what I could within my means. But of course, my sister wasn't having any of it. She doubled down, accusing me of being dramatic and cheap, and said something about how she's always the one carrying the financial load for the family. That last comment really rubbed me the wrong way. It felt like she was trying to paint herself as some kind of martyr when, in reality, she created this whole situation by springing her expectations on me at the last minute. At this point, I realized we weren't going to get anywhere. It was like talking to a brick wall. So, I just left the conversation and decided to focus on what I could control, my own peace of mind. But then, later that day, my mom called me. Now, let me preface this by saying that my mom is not the type to get involved in drama unless she feels like it's absolutely necessary. She's the kind of person who prefers to keep the peace and let people sort out their own issues. So, when she called and asked me directly what had happened at dinner, I knew she must have sensed the tension. I tried to downplay it at first, but she kept pressing, and eventually, I gave her the full story. I was careful not to sound too accusatory because I didn't want to make things worse, but I was honest about how the situation had made me feel. I told her about my sister's expectations, how I'd tried to contribute what I could, and how the whole thing had left me feeling humiliated and out of place. My mom's reaction surprised me. She was furious, not at me, but at my sister. She couldn't believe my sister had put me in that position, knowing full well that I'm a college student with limited funds. She said it was completely unfair of her to expect me to pay an equal share of the bill when she and her boyfriend had ordered so much more than I had. My mom said she appreciated the fact that I'd made an effort to contribute toward her meal, and she felt bad that the dinner had turned into such a stressful experience for me. What really caught me off guard was when my mom said she was going to talk to my sister about it. She told me she didn't want this drama to overshadow her birthday memories or cause a rift in the family. While I appreciated her support, I also felt a bit anxious about her getting involved. I didn't want to escalate the situation, and I wasn't sure how my sister would react to my mom calling her out. So now, I'm left waiting for that conversation to happen. I don't know what my mom is going to say to my sister, but I can't help but feel a mix of relief and dread. On one hand, I'm glad my mom is standing up for me and recognizing that what happened wasn't fair. On the other hand, I worry that this might just make my sister even more resentful. I've already seen how she reacts when her actions are questioned, and I'm not sure how she'll handle hearing criticism from mom. I'm still holding out hope that my sister will eventually come around and realize that her expectations were unfair, but for now, I'm just trying to take things one step at a time. I'll keep you all updated if anything else happens. Update 2. Well, things have escalated. Buckle up, Reddit, because this got messy real fast. After my mom confronted my sister about the dinner situation, things went downhill faster than I could have imagined. What I thought might be a straightforward conversation turned into a full-blown argument that unearthed years of resentment, hurt feelings, and, apparently, some deep-seated family dynamics I didn't even fully realize were at play. According to my mom, the conversation started out calm enough. She approached my sister with the intent of explaining why her behavior at the dinner was unfair, especially considering my financial situation. Mom said she wanted to make it clear that my contribution, paying for my own meal and chipping in for hers, was thoughtful and reasonable given my circumstances. But my sister didn't see it that way at all. She immediately went on the defensive, saying that I was being selfish and ungrateful, and that I'd embarrassed her in front of her boyfriend by refusing to split the bill evenly. She also accused me of making her look bad for always being the one who has to step up financially. My mom wasn't having it. She pushed back, telling my sister that no one had asked her to organize an expensive dinner in the first place and that if she couldn't handle the financial burden without resentment, she should have chosen something more affordable. My mom even admitted to my sister that she would have been perfectly happy with a simpler celebration, like a homemade dinner or a meal at a casual restaurant. That's when things took a sharp turn. Apparently, my sister got really defensive and lashed out, saying something along the lines of, well, maybe I wouldn't have to organize everything if someone else in this family actually stepped up for once. Ouch. Hearing that from my mom was like a gut punch. I've always known my sister can be intense and controlling, but hearing that she felt like the sole, responsible, adult in the family was shocking. To be honest, it felt like she was rewriting history to paint herself as some kind of martyr, which couldn't be further from the truth. But it didn't stop there. My mom told me that during their argument, she brought up other times my sister had used her financial generosity to control family events and position herself as the golden child. She mentioned past birthdays, holidays, and even random outings where my sister insisted on expensive restaurants, extravagant gifts, or fancy activities, only to later complain about how much it all cost and how no one appreciated her efforts. Mom said she'd been biting her tongue for years but had finally reached her breaking point. She told my sister flat out that her actions came across as more about control and appearances than genuine generosity. That's when my sister apparently snapped. She told my mom that she was done planning anything for the family because, in her words, no one appreciates it. She said she was tired of always being the one to make things happen and accused both of us, yes, me and my mom, of taking advantage of her. According to my mom, my sister even hinted that I've been poisoning her relationship with our mom for years, which was honestly baffling to hear. I had no idea she even thought of me that way. I'm not sure what I've done to warrant being labeled as manipulative, but that's apparently how she sees me now. After that conversation, my mom called me to vent, and I could tell she was both angry and hurt. She feels like my sister's outburst wasn't just about the dinner but about years of pent-up frustration that had nothing to do with me. She kept saying she didn't know things had gotten this bad and that she wished my sister had spoken up earlier if she'd been feeling overwhelmed or underappreciated. At the same time, Mom made it clear she doesn't agree with my sister's approach and thought the way she handled everything was unfair and unnecessarily harsh. Meanwhile, I received a text from my sister that floored me. She said I'd poisoned our mom against her and that I was just as manipulative as I've always been. For the record, I have no idea where that's coming from. We've had our fair share of sibling squabbles over the years, but nothing that would warrant this level of hostility. It feels like she's projecting a lot of her frustration onto me, and I honestly don't know how to respond. I haven't replied to her text because I don't even know what to say. Anything I say feels like it'll just make things worse, and at this point, I'm exhausted. Since then, my sister has gone completely radio silent in our family group chat. She's not responding to me or my mom, and it feels like she's purposely shutting us out to make a point. She's even stopped sharing her usual updates or memes, which has left the chat eerily quiet. It's petty, sure, but it's also unsettling. My mom has tried reaching out to her a few times, but she's being ignored too, which is really out of character for my sister. She's always been the one to push for family communication, so seeing her cut us off feels deliberate. I can't shake the feeling that this isn't even about dinner anymore. There's clearly a lot of unresolved tension that's been simmering under the surface for years, and I feel like I've unintentionally opened Pandora's box by not going along with the bill splitting. It's like the dinner was just the spark that ignited a much bigger fire, and now I'm left standing in the middle of the wreckage, unsure of how to move forward. My mom has been incredibly supportive through all of this, which I'm grateful for. She even offered to cover the $15 I chipped in for her meal, which I obviously declined. It wasn't about the money for me. It was about standing my ground and being honest about what I could afford. But even with her support, I can't help but feel guilty. I never wanted to create this much drama, and now I'm questioning whether I should have just sucked it up and paid the $80 to avoid all of this. At the same time, I know that wouldn't have solved the underlying issues. It would have just postponed the inevitable blow-up. Right now, I'm at a loss for what to do. My sister is clearly furious with me, and I don't know if there's anything I can do to fix that. Part of me wants to reach out and try to patch things up, but another part of me feels like I need to let her cool off and come to me when she's ready. I'm also worried that anything I say will just fuel her belief that I'm manipulative or trying to turn mom against her. It feels like no matter what I do, I'm going to be the bad guy in her eyes. Reddit, I don't know where to go from here. This situation has left me feeling drained and honestly a little heartbroken. My sister and I have never been super close, but we've always been able to coexist without this level of animosity. If anyone has advice on how to navigate this, I'm all ears. For now, I'm just trying to focus on keeping the peace with my mom and hoping that my sister will eventually come around. I'll keep you all updated if anything else happens, but for now, I'm bracing myself for whatever comes next. Update 3. After my last update, I made the conscious decision not to engage with my sister's texts. The accusations of being manipulative and the guilt-tripping had me mentally drained, and I figured the best thing I could do was give her space to cool off. Truthfully, I also needed the space to process everything without her words rattling around in my head, making me second-guess myself. I resolved to let her come to me when she was ready, if she ever was. In the meantime, Mom kept trying to reach out to her. She's always been the type to play mediator, and she was determined to patch things up between us. But my sister stayed radio silent for about a week. It was like she had vanished from the family dynamic entirely, which, honestly, was both a relief and a source of anxiety. Then, out of the blue, she broke the silence with a long, emotionally charged message in the family group chat. The message wasn't directed at me specifically, it was addressed to all of us, but it was clear who the underlying tension was about. In her message, she laid out everything she had been feeling. She talked about how unappreciated she felt for all the effort she puts into planning family events and how exhausting it is to always be the one who steps up to make things happen. She said it hurt her deeply to feel like no one recognized her efforts and claimed that the drama over the dinner had overshadowed what was supposed to be a special night for Mom. Of course, she added a subtle jab at me by saying that I had made the evening about money, which, according to her, was selfish and unnecessary. Reading that message was tough. On one hand, I could understand where she was coming from, at least to some extent. Being the one who takes on the responsibility of planning and organizing can be thankless, especially if you feel like no one else is stepping up. But on the other hand, I couldn't help but feel frustrated. No one had ever asked her to take on that role. She had assigned it to herself and, over the years, had made it a part of her identity. And while she does a great job planning things, her habit of holding it over everyone's heads whenever she feels slighted makes it hard to fully appreciate her efforts. This wasn't the first time she'd made a big deal about how much she does for the family, but it was the first time it felt so personal. Mom, to her credit, didn't let the message sit unaddressed. She responded in the group chat with a calm but firm message. She said that while she appreciated all the effort my sister puts into planning events, no one had ever asked her to go above and beyond. Mom reiterated that she would have been just as happy with a simpler, more budget-friendly celebration for her birthday. She also pointed out that the whole, splitting the bill evenly, idea was not only unrealistic but unfair to me given my financial situation. Mom's message felt like a protective shield, and I was so grateful she spoke up for me. She made it clear that my contribution had been thoughtful and generous, and she didn't appreciate how the situation had been blown out of proportion. After Mom's message, I felt like I needed to say something too, not to argue but to make my feelings clear. I kept my response simple and respectful. I told my sister that I never intended to cause any drama or make her feel unappreciated. I acknowledged the effort she puts into planning family events and said that I genuinely value everything she does. But I also told her that I need her to respect my financial limitations. I explained that my inability to contribute the way she can isn't a reflection of how much I care, and I needed her to stop making me feel guilty for circumstances that are out of my control. I ended by saying that I love her and don't want this to come between us, but we all contribute to the family in different ways, and it's not a competition. Her response came a few hours later. It wasn't long or emotional, just a short, clipped message that said, "I hear you. Let's just move on." While it wasn't the heartfelt resolution I had secretly hoped for, it felt like the best I was going to get. It was an olive branch, albeit a slightly wilted one, and I decided to accept it for what it was. Since then, things have been civil but distant. My sister has been noticeably quieter in the group chat, and while she hasn't outright ignored anyone, the enthusiasm she used to bring to our family conversations is definitely missing. She hasn't brought up the dinner again, which I think is for the best, but the tension is still palpable. Mom and I have had a few private conversations about everything, and she's been incredibly supportive throughout all of this. She told me she plans to have a separate conversation with my sister to address some of the deeper issues, like the resentment my sister seems to be harboring and her tendency to hold her financial contributions over everyone's heads. I think that's a conversation they need to have without me in the middle, so I'm staying out of it. I trust my mom to handle it with the care and compassion she always brings to these situations. As for me, I've learned a lot from this experience, mostly about the importance of setting boundaries. If my sister decides to plan another family event in the future, I'm going to be upfront about my financial situation from the start. I'll ask how the bill will be handled before committing to anything so there are no surprises. And if it's something beyond my means, I've decided it's okay to say no. I think a lot of my guilt and anxiety about this situation came from feeling like I couldn't say no to family plans, but this experience has shown me that it's better to be honest about my limitations than to put myself in a position where I feel uncomfortable or resentful. Moving forward, I'm focusing on maintaining a healthy relationship with my mom and doing what I can to rebuild my relationship with my sister over time. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time and reminding myself that it's okay to prioritize my own well-being.